Hey guys, Matt here from Spring Digital. The very first question I get asked within 5 minutes after I hear a pitch is, "So Matt, how much is this going to cost us?" Let me put it this way. Think about some of the most recent products or services that you've bought. Whether it's a car, a smartphone, or even a cleaning service. There are different price points depending on certain elements. The same goes for your app or software project. So, my answer to that question is always going to be, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And actually, the irony of asking this question so early on is that it's probably the least important question to be asking right now. The real benefit shouldn't be measured on cost, but rather what the return on investment might look like. You should never take on a software or app project on the chance or possibility of return. Sure, there'll be hard work along the way and there's a lot to do. But even at this early stage, the value of your project can be quantified. If you're watching this video though, it means that you're looking for some kind of concrete answer with a dollar value. So don't worry, I won't disappoint. I'll give you some numbers to keep in mind, so stick around. But first things first, you'll need to take a little step back and make sure you understand what goes on in developing an app. Once you understand that, you'll understand where the cost and estimate comes from. On a side note, I'm just going to generalize my language and refer to apps throughout this video, but the same information would apply to web-based software too. Okay, so here's what you need to know about the development process. First, you're going to come to us with great ideas. Then we'll measure, discuss, dive in, and ask plenty of questions. If the idea holds some benefit and the solution will return some measurable business value, which isn't always money by the way, then we'll explore more. Only at this point, we will come up with what I call a guesstimate of your app development costs. And then either you'll stay and we'll start rolling up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty, or you go elsewhere. If you decide to stay, we then move on to what we call the discovery process. This process dives in and covers the foundation level of assets needed for the project, like the requirements, wireframes, sitemaps, and user flows. Only after the discovery process can we move to an estimate rather than a guesstimate. It's easiest for me to go off with what we do here at Spring Digital, but obviously keep in mind that every agency is different. Here, we have a fixed price model, which most clients move forward with because there's no hidden costs. Our model is specifically designed to add cost assurance to our clients, and that what they've asked for is what they're going to get. We don't dabble in conversations that go along the lines of, "Oh, sorry, that took a little bit longer and we need more money." Having said that though, along with our fixed price quote, we always suggest putting aside a contingency budget in case it's needed. The only time we ever see a client dip into the contingency budget is if they've decided they want to add a new feature along the way. The decision always rests in our client's hands, whether or not they use those funds. We just want to make sure that the client gets everything they want, so the contingency helps with that. So that's the estimation process. Now let's get into the figures. There are a few big factors that affect the app development cost, and that includes who builds your app, what the design costs are, what you need the app to do, and what your maintenance costs are going to be. In terms of who develops your app, you can either go with a freelancer or an agency. Freelancers will typically be less expensive per hour, but often end up being more expensive in the long term. I've actually covered this topic in a separate video on my YouTube channel, so make sure you check it out. Obviously, coming from an agency, I'm going to give you a cost estimate from that perspective. So the design phase, which is where your idea comes to life visually, can range from anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 for simple apps to $25,000 to $50,000 for more complex ones. The design sprint is usually the first step in the development journey and can take around 2 to 6 weeks to complete, depending on the complexity of your app. As a rule of thumb, the design sprint accounts for roughly between 10 to 15% of the total development budget. But seriously, just take it with a grain of salt because it's just a rough estimate. After the design, we move on to the development and coding part of the journey, which is the largest function of the whole process. So it obviously has a significant influence on the overall budget. But of course, the cost here depends on various factors like the app's complexity, features, the platform mixed with the development, and the testing resources. But you can expect the cost to be anywhere between $20,000 up to $1 million plus. Yeah, I know it's a pretty broad range, so let's have a look at a few examples for clarity. A mobile app usually cost between $20,000 and $400,000. Most business apps or software would sit somewhere between $50,000 and $300,000. Social media apps between $100,000 and $200,000. And games are usually no less than $200,000. You're probably starting to see that diving into a project like this needs to be done with your eyes wide open. If you really want to keep the estimate simple, you can take the total project hours, multiply that by the agency's hourly rate, and get a rough figure. But remember, you also need to factor in the maintenance and ongoing costs. These costs are kind of like keeping the business in business. You need to pay rent, you need office space, you need to keep your electricity on. You can generally expect maintenance and infrastructure costs to be roughly between $5,000 and $10,000 each year, and will include services like databases, servers, and other third-party services. But if success comes your way, be ready to scale these costs up. And then lastly, yeah, there is more, but I promise you it's the last thing you need to consider. You need to think about support, changes, and upgrades to the platform over time. In the world of software development, you're always going to have to implement updates, new features, bug fixes, and emergency maintenance. It's just the nature of the game. The time and cost of these updates will vary depending on the nature and size of your project. For example, updating a small functional aspect can take a couple of days and a couple of $1,000s. But larger features could take weeks and a lot more money. So in this regard, I would consider where you are wanting to take your business and what support you will need, how quickly you're going to need them to respond, and then budget accordingly. I hope you found this helpful, but if you need a little bit more guidance, I've left a link to our Estimating an App Development Guide in the description box below. This will help you along with the specifics of your project. Otherwise, we'd love to hear about your idea for your next project, and even help you with an obligation-free estimate. That's it from me. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to learn more about bringing your app or software idea to life. See you next time.